As I was preparing for today, the phrase just kept coming to mind, if they could see me now. I was raised here in Spokane by a single parent with an older brother and younger sister, and we were raised using the public welfare system, honestly. Most of my teachers were betting I would be standing in front of a parole board instead of here today with you. Instead, the 4th District PCOs have given me the honor of being here before you today. A successful businessman with 3 college degrees, a devoted father and grandfather and husband of almost 30 years now, an honorably discharged retired veteran with over 20 years in service, a community and business and even church leader. Yes, if they could only see me now. As most of you know, I've been dreaming and preparing for this day for more than 9 years. And it all started by asking our Representative Larry Krause out to lunch about 9 years ago. And I do want to thank him for his service. He's been faithful for 19 years to the people of the 4th. That lunch and my wife's consistent encouragement to make a difference is the reason I'm here today before you. It's the reason I got involved as a precinct committee officer, a district leader, got on the board, and was willing to take the hard hits that the board seemed to, the punches that went around in that room from time to time. And I also personally spent a lot of time on people's campaigns and money. Some of you might know that the Air Force has a set of core values, and they are driven into you the minute you step off the bus at basic training. And that is integrity first, service before self, and excellence in all we do. And I believe that I'm different than the other candidates because of those core values that have been instilled in my life and how I've been living them the last 30 years. I believe my desire for this appointment stems from a strong sense of duty to serve others before myself. I joined the Air Force right out of high school to serve my country. I joined the Spokane GOP in Civil Air Patrol to serve my community. And I attribute the success in my business and real estate to serving my clients' needs and interest before my own. I'm also in a very unique position because other than our home, we've managed to live a debt-free lifestyle. All the cars and toys are all paid for, and we have no obligations. And that's allowed us to do what we want with our time. And that's why we're able to serve on a lot of campaigns and committees. As you know, that I'll be able to devote 100% of my time. I will not have any other obligations before being a legislator, getting to meet and greet the people of the 4th, and earning their vote. And some of you might wonder, how in the world will I do that while I'm still a realtor? Well, as you know, I already spend a lot of time on campaigns, and I've been really blessed with some amazing friends in real estate who I'm going to be able to pass on all the business that I have and receive a referral income off that. So I'm receiving money without even being there and working, and that's my plan at this time. Currently, my wife and I are the proverbial empty nesters. Our daughter just bought her house back in September and has moved out. There is nothing holding us to Spokane, and she will be going with me over to Olympia to be a big help for me to learn quickly. I thank you for this, and I am ready for your questions.
Very good. Start with Commissioner Milken.
Thank you much. So we'll go ahead and start off again working through our list of questions you've heard us ask the others. And that would be, first and foremost, what motivates you to seek this position, specifically this position as opposed to just community service, public service.
Right. Yeah, I'm not sure why any sane individual would run for public office, to be honest with you. I've gotten more than my fair share of one-finger waves or waving signs. But for me, it's about making a difference, standing up, and you just can't be sitting on the couch when watching these other things go on and your rights being taken away and your community having issues with funding and not be a part of the solution. So for me, it's strictly about public service. And I'm not exactly sure why state representative had always been my dream, but I think it goes back to the 1992 when I helped Representative Roger Bush on his campaign while stationed in Tacoma. And I just was amazed at the difference he could make in that position. So when I thought about what can I do to make a difference, that just is the position I desired for many years, and that's why I had asked Larry. And so this is specifically the position I want.
attributes do you believe makes you a better candidate than the other two candidates?
Well, first of all, I think the other two candidates are fine community people here in Spokane, and they're wonderful, and I'm thrilled to be sitting here amongst them. And as you stated, this is amazing. They're good quality folks. For me, I believe it's the values of integrity first, and service before self, and excellence all we do. When a pilot comes out to an airplane, he steps off his vehicle there, and he walks up to the sergeant and says, "Hey, Sarge, how's my plane? You have 50,000 pounds of fuel on board, sir, and it's ready to fly." Jumps in, and off they go. They load up 100 passengers. And it's the word of that integrity in the Air Force that made the difference. Why the pilot feels they don't have to go inspect that plane. I know that this individual has done their job, and they said what they mean, and I feel safe with it. And I believe that history and that 20 years of service has really instilled in me integrity, your word, is what's most important.
So what do you believe are the top 3 issues facing the state and the issues facing the region, and which of those would you be focusing on?
Well, I think integrity is missing in our state. When the Department of Transportation has as many mess-ups as they have, and nobody's held accountable except the taxpayer. When policemen break the law, lose their job, and then are forced to be rehired with a settlement, we're missing integrity in our community. And so I believe the first thing I would like to do, and maybe you'll call it a pet project, is that I want to work with Sheriff Ozzie to make sure that this year his Integrity First bill goes through. I think it starts there. I believe the unions, that's the first chipping away, in my opinion, is putting them on the spot for integrity. As far as other state ones, I would like to be part of the transportation package if at all possible. The reality is they've been talking about the North-South Freeway before I was born, and I'm hoping that my hearse can go down it someday. So the reality is, I believe that needs to, transportation has to be. We cannot have an effective community without getting your goods to market, people getting to work, people be able to come and see our wonderful area unless they have a road to drive on. So I'd like to be part of that. And also something that's coming along that I don't think a lot of people are understanding is that with the passage of marijuana, we're going to see an influx of more people to our state because they want to smoke marijuana. And the reality is they're not the classiest of citizens, and all of them anyway, and we're going to get an influx. So I believe our crime's going to go up. Well, there's going to be a tax revenue going along with that, and I'd sure like to see the counties get an increased portion of that to specifically pay to keep the crime down. As far as local, well, transportation is going to be first on that because I do believe Spokane, I'm committed to the Spokane Freeway getting done. And also, I'd like to see the counties have more freedom in spending the money that's allotted to them. I remember in the Air Force, at the end of the year, we had to wait to buy fuel and tools, but we could buy office furniture like crazy. It made no sense to me how you could, it was called the color of money. And we had money to do stupid stuff, but when we needed money in, we couldn't use it. And I think counties need to be more flexible in that. And then we need to control the cost drivers for the counties, like not making them force them to house jail inmates for 2 years instead of 1. I hear that's going around.
Sorry. So, if appointed, do you plan to run in the fall to retain the seat? And I'll go ahead and ask the other one, which is if you're not appointed today, what your intentions would be.
There is absolutely zero doubt that I'll be running. In fact, my campaign manager is sitting right behind me, Howard DeWitt, and I have a CPA, Bob McKinley, who's already signed on and filed my first reports, I think yesterday. I have currently in my book here 2 plans, a Plan A and a Plan B. And I'll tell you, Plan A has got about 6 pages and 2 pages of phone calls to collect on pledges that people have made to my campaign all in the next 3 days. Plan B is 1 page long and ends with learning how to drink. So, when you say, well, I run, absolutely. 2 weeks ago I was pretty up in the air about this because the reality is I think there's been a lot of dividing in our party, and I didn't want to see myself as being part of the divide. But I've had a lot of people in the last couple of weeks really educate me, fill me in on a lot of things that I could do well in Olympia, and it will depend on who gets selected today, but I believe I'm going to end up running anyway.
Okay. It might seem like an obvious question, but I know I've sat in this chair during a previous interview process when 2 out of the 3 candidates said they had not made up their mind on whether they'd be running in the fall or not, and I wondered why we were going through the process, frankly, to place somebody in position for a really short period of time. So,
Okay, let me put your mind at ease. I want to stay in this office long enough to be effective.
okay.
We talked a little bit about divisiveness, it was mentioned, but would you say that, some would say that the 4th District is divided, factionalized. Would you agree with that statement, and how do you see yourself working with the different groups?
I don't think any normal human being could not see it as divided. And that's kind of sad because it seems like we beat up our own candidates more than we beat up the other side, which blows my mind here in Spokane. There's absolutely divide, and I don't understand it quietly because when you talk to somebody who supported maybe Ron Paul, we agree on like 99% of the things. So I don't understand why we're divided, why you wouldn't support me. I'm not for, going out raising taxes. I'm not for, I've got moral issues that I definitely don't want to cross. And so why are we, divided? And it's just, I think it's a perception, if nothing else. And I've worked really hard with the Republicans of Spokane County and the board to ease some of this stuff. But it definitely is divided, and I think there's more work to be done.
Expand a little bit more on, do you feel that you would have any challenges if appointed working with both sides?
Yeah, I understand where you're getting at with that. The kind of weird thing is I'm kind of a bold person, and so I don't mind calling people I don't agree with and working for the common ground we can agree on. And as I was preparing for the PCO appointment for this, I actually went out and sat with many folks that I thought for sure would just as soon stab me as I walked in the door, and we had a wonderful conversation in the living room for hours. And I think that's where it goes, is I'm absolutely not opposed to continuing those. When folks that I don't always agree with phone call me, I still answer the phone call or call back within 30 minutes. But I want to speak to them too. Number one, because we actually do agree on so many points, it's just kind of funny, and they just a lot of times need to be reminded that, hey, I agree with you on that.
So if appointed, you would be serving in the legislature in the minority.
Mm-hmm.
And so how do you see yourself as being effective as a minority member of the House of Representatives?
I think I'm uniquely qualified on this one. Part of my 20 years in the Air Force was recruiting duty, where I got the opportunity to work with a lot of 18 and 19-year-old kids, and I can guarantee you we didn't agree on a lot of things. But the Air Force provided an amazing amount of training on how to find out what you had in common and then develop a relationship and a friendship so that the actual work could get done around that. And of course, when Reagan was president, he was extremely good at that because they would all yell and scream in front of the public, but afterwards they'd all go have a drink together and get the job done. And so I do believe that the people in Olympia have to be there to serve their constituents if they wish to be reelected. But then there's also the time when the cameras are off that we get the opportunity to sit down and talk and get the job done.
So transportation, been talked about a lot this morning. So would you support a transportation package that included additional revenue if you knew that major projects in the Spokane region would receive considerable funding?
And I want to make it very clear to you, I am absolutely committed to getting the North-South Freeway done. The idea of moving truck traffic off of asphalt streets and onto a concrete-based highway that is maintained by the state funds will save Spokane County a ton of money, improve our lives, and improve our economy and ability. With that said, the current proposal is about going to collect $10 billion. That's what we need. And of that, we're getting very little for our money. We're going to spend about 30% on prevailing wage. We're not going to get better roads. We're not going to get bigger roads. We're just going to get more expensive roads. The idea of a truck driver getting paid $25 an hour normally during his day, and all of a sudden could be getting $47 an hour just because he's working on a different program, a project, is ridiculous. So that's going to take $3 billion right off the top, 30%, and now we're down to 70. With that, we're going to be paying 8% sales tax on these programs. Okay, that's another $800 million. What do we need to get free in Spokane done? About $750 million. Just that alone can pay for Spokane's freeway. And then we're going to go and do it even better. We're going to go bond the issue so we can get it done now. So we're going to be paying 25 cents on a dime to get a dime back. So we're going to be borrowing the money now over an 8-10-year program, maybe at 8%, to get these programs done now. I seem to remember back in 2005, there was a lot of promises made about a 9 cents a gallon increase in sales tax, where they also added weight fees to our cars and trucks. And, oh, by the way, $75 just because you own a motorhome each year. And we were supposed to get about $230 million out of that package. And we were right to the top of that project list. And today, they've maxed out the bonding ability on that project, that 9 cents. And, oh, by the way, we're somewhere in the neighborhood of $70 million. What happened to the other 200-ish million that was promised to us? Our freeway would be almost done at this point. So at this point, supporting this particular proposal, with our freeway not being a binding portion of it, and without the tax reforms at least getting in there working, I think the voters demand more. And I couldn't support the current version, but I would certainly like to work on a version that taxpayers would be honored to see the integrity of our system again and be willing to support it.
Okay. And then just as a follow-up, this notion of should a proposal come forward, trying to maintain a proportionate share for local governments and for counties, would you be supportive? And this is the one where, you know, of the entire transportation system, 60% of it falls under the authority of counties to fund its maintenance and all that. I think in the last two proposals, the last two transportation packages, instead of the historical formula being followed, it was zeroed out. And one of the proposals that came out in the current form, the current package, is to cut the county share in half of what it's been historically. So the question is would you support counties continuing to receive an equitable share based on the proportion of roadways that they maintain?
I think the problem here is bigger than just that. What happens is state legislators forget that counties do all the work for the state. Cities are optional, counties are required. It isn't the state that goes out and fixes all of our roads and does all this work. We're supposed to be a team. Just like the pilot, yeah, they get the glory, but the reality is they don't go anywhere if somebody doesn't shovel the runway and fix the lunch. And I think that when a pilot forgets that, the teammates have a way of straightening back up. And so the reality is I think we need to start working more as a team where we're not sitting here as the state legislators trying to keep shrugging off our duty onto the county's duty. You know, that to me, that's just pushing too much on the quarterback of your team and expecting the team to work. It's just not going to get to the Super Bowl that way. We need to start working together more so that we don't have to be taking away your part. Again, the North-South Freeway will add a lot to your budgets with by just not having to fix all the roads from the truck traffic each year. So,
Thank you.
How do you see your role working with local elected officials on state issues?
well, it's kind of, again, I feel like I'm a little unique, other than Diana, obviously. I feel that we're all friends. And so we've already built trust up. So when we come and talk to each other, when I talk to Steve Salvatore in the city, we already have this level of trust because of our friendship. And I know you're working best for the people who you represent, and Steve Salvatore, you're working best for his people. So I think those relationships have already been established. And so I know that when you come to me or I come to you with, hey, what's the best way to solve this problem? When you give that answer, we've already got the integrity and the trust already established. So I know you're working for the best, and I think we can come to an agreement that's going to work out for both. I mean, it's not all about me, it's not all about you, and I understand that right away. And so the last 9 years in the party, I've learned a lot of those lessons.
So in response to the Cleary decision, the legislature has focused much of its attention on fully funding basic education. Counties are responsible for implementing the state's criminal justice system, which requires providing jails, courts, prosecutors, public defenders, juvenile justice system, mental health services. So how will you balance moving money in the state budget to address these demands?
I kind of think they need to actually be almost separated, where public safety, the counties and the cities, the schools, they need to stand kind of on their own, and we need to quit taking all the money from them and saying, oh, we're just going to share it together. Oh, your spot's smaller than the other. We need to be able to give you the flexibility to spend your money as the county as you see fit.